Welcome to Treknicity, a Star Trek podcast, where we continue the roller coaster of nostalgic love letter from the Star Trek universe. I'm Lars.
And I'm Patrick, and yeah, I'm not awake anymore, so I'm going to go to sleep while we talk.
In this episode, we're discussing and reviewing the 7th episode of the 3rd and final season of Star Trek Picard, entitled Dominion. We also have another very special guest, as you can see, from the podcast Trek Trav on TikTok and YouTube. Please welcome Trek Trav.
Yay! Woo.
After this, we're just 3 short episodes away from the TNG reunion tour wrapping up, and Sir Pat Stewart hanging up the Picard hat for good. What's Vadic's beef with the fleet? Who is this mysterious hand puppy pulling her strings? And is Jack a Decepticon or just a run-of-the-mill Autobot?
I think I just completely blanked out what he said. How about you?
I saw his lip moving, and all I hear is... Oh.
Okay. So we're going to change up the format this week because obviously with 3 of us, if I try to go through point by point, we are going to wear out. This is going to be 2 hours episode. And as we record this, we're already pushing midnight, which means I got to work in like 7 hours. So obviously the short, if you haven't seen the episode, why are you watching this? Second of all, the short answer, what happens in this episode, we basically see how isolated the Titan is, that every chance they've got to talk to people is getting cut off, and it's just them versus the changelings to try to stop whatever's coming. They discuss that they've been on defense the whole time. Could we do something about that? Beverly, of course, suggests the option of going bioweapon on the changelings, where we heard that before. Vadic, on the other hand, gets tortured more by her changeling handler, who's threatening her again. So they come up with the idea of trying to trick Vadic to come on board the Titan so they can take him. Jack and Sidney LaForge do some hoppy and running around the halls with some force fields and pretty much lock them all up, where we finally get Vadic's backstory, which is that apparently she and a bunch of other changelings were tortured and manipulated by Section 31 to be sleeper agents. But of course, she killed her captor, and that's how Vadic got her face, the person who was experimenting on her and whistling while she worked. Yeah,
I stand by my earlier statement that Section 31 from Star Trek is their version of Wizard Did It.
Yep. So Data, of course, decides to go lore on us, takes over, shuts everything down, which allows Vadic to kick Shaw's ass, and take the Titan. And that's where we leave this episode, which, to be honest, left me saying, for the first time this season, why can't I watch the next episode now? That was my reaction. So I'll leave it up to you guys to comment on that shit, because that's the whole episode.
I was honestly thinking by the end, I'm going, okay, you've left the biggest thing for the end. And I just felt a little like the whole episode was a bit of filler that, like, it was like, why? You've literally teased us. Just do this. Yeah. Like, that's all I felt at the ending. I was like, what?
It was like this episode. Look, despite the fact that we got some great meat as far as Vadic's backstory and seeing the dichotomy of the lore Data thing going on, and seeing Geordi cry for once, I really felt like it was edging without the reward, and
yeah. I think the biggest thing about the episode I took from it was Geordi crying for Data / lore. We wanted to see that from Nemesis. I get that. Although it didn't feel appropriate here, I think anger would have been more appropriate. I that's what I felt with that particular scene. It's like, you would be going the hell off.
Oh yeah.
If so, you'd be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Like, seriously, what the hell? What is your major malfunction there?
Yeah. But I think the shippers kind of had an idea on that one. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you talk about when you're sitting there and you're looking at how, I mean, the one person who is going to be affected the most by the reemergence of Data and /lore what's his name? I can't remember his name. Alton Soon is, and B4 is that Geordi is the one who has the most at stake emotionally.
But the problem was they forgot that for 4 feature films. So they're actually getting an emotional beat from a TV series that hasn't been on for almost 30 years, not from Nemesis or First Contact or any of those.
But let's be honest,
it just seemed weird.
Let's be honest. This is TNG season 8.
Yeah,
that's what this season of Picard is. With a little DS9 and Voyager thrown in.
Well, this is the thing. I with this entire season, but with this episode as well, I can't help thinking that if you took DS9 characters and put them in the place of TNG characters, it would be perfect. So much of this is DS9 and not really Next Generation, and that's the only thing in this entire season that it sort of annoys me. There should be DS9 characters in it, period. Like,
at least
it's
more DS9 characters than just Worf.
Well, Dr. Bashir did so much research on the changelings. Why isn't he there? Like when they said, "Oh, we're not going to show you who's appearing next week," I was like, "Oh, it has to be someone from Deep Space Nine. They know the most about the changelings and the Dominion." And then we get, who do we get?
Tuvok.
Yeah, and it wasn't even Tuvok.
Yeah.
But that opening scene, that scene was awesome because we get them talking. We get our Tuvok is like, yay! And then she's asking questions, and she asked the personal question that Tuvok should only be the one who answers it, and he answers it. And then the Voyager theme starts playing. It was like, okay. And then she keeps going, and there's, no, you wouldn't. A Vulcan would never go there, and Tuvok knew that I did that on Voyager. It's like, oh, shit! And then
Tuvok really good crazy.
Yeah. And then he gets that little smile.
Yeah.
Which, from what I got from watching the latest episode of the Ready Room, is he really enjoyed being able to do that, to have that little smile after playing Tuvok for so long, where he had to keep those emotions on the down low and do everything with an eyebrow. Suddenly, now he gets to be an asshole and like, yeah, we're going to destroy you. Also, Will Riker cameo. I'm dead.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. One thing that does get me, and this may just be an irrational criticism, is that I feel like anybody who's watched the Russell T Davies, Chris Chibnall, Stephen Moffat, Doctor Who series knows this very well, that it's very much the MacGuffin. Like, there's always the MacGuffin. Like when you think shit, when they're sitting there, like, and he's like, she looks over and like kind of gives the symbol that, or the nod that, yeah, it's him. And you hear the little flourish from the Voyager theme, and you're like, yeah, it's Tuvok. And then he's like, psych, gotcha. And I'm like, okay. If we knew that little bit she used to trip him up about the whole going to the safe place, and then like no Vulcan would go there after the anti-Kolinar demonstrations and stuff, it's like, if we knew that, if that was like something that was common knowledge, then you would be like, oh yeah, you smart little shit, didn't you? You got him. But we're just like, oh, of course there's some trip up there. And I was like, but the thing is, they do that with Doctor Who all the time.
The mind meld that Tuvok did in Voyager, that's the thing she referenced.
Right.
What do people, like, do people have issues with Kolinar? That was my thought. I was going, why would they have issues? Who would be writing this? Like, it seemed odd to me to
followers of Cybok.
Yeah, well, I don't remember. I didn't remember that episode. Yeah, we won't talk about Strange New Worlds, but Like, I don't understand.
Season 2's coming.
They could have used a bigger moment, and it just see. I love seeing Tim Russ. I think he plays evil great, but I was just a bit like, so we're going to get 2 seconds of Tuvok. He better come back at the end of the series. Like,
yeah,
I just want some Janeway.
Yeah,
I mean, she'll be in it. Last episode, hands down.
Where's O'Brien? Like again, I really have to agree with you that the whole thing about having more DS9 characters in on this particular plot line would be much more apropos because, I mean, they're the ones who bore the brunt of the Dominion War. Hell, if Aaron Eisenberg was still alive, Nog would have had to have been there.
It's one of those things that I've been thinking all season is that the Dominion War was a Deep Space Nine series. It was their story. In in Insurrection at the beginning, they go, oh, we'll put out another brush fire on the Dominion War. That's the only time TNG even mentioned the Dominion War. So it just felt odd to me to pick that as the primary enemy. But obviously they're a big part of the show's lore. So it's sort of, I get why they did it.
Yeah, and I mean also, the other thing for me is that, and then maybe it's just because, again, I ever since I went to film school, I feel like I've been tainted. Like my eye has been tainted. So I don't just enjoy something for the pure sake of going, ooh, what's next? I can't wait to find out what's next. I'm asking questions like, who are the guys in the masks who barely speak a lick of English? Are they the new Jem'Hadar? Are they, are they something else? Like, why are they dragging their feet on who these guys are? Is it really going to pay off? Does it even matter? I mean, is it going to be they're just there? They're of no real consequence.
They've pretty much just said they're changelings, haven't they? They've pretty much just whenever they talk, it's we are changelings together. And the face, the big globby, I don't know what to call it, human cysty face.
Oh, the CG hand puppet.
Yeah, like he's the different alien. He's not a changeling, but all of these others are. And I want to see where that goes. But if it turns out that it's like Gul Dukat and he's a par wraith, I'm going to be very let down.
I was just about to say, my big letdown is if this all revolves around the fucking temporal Cold War.
Oh, I hope not. Maybe it's William Shatner from his Frozen tube.
Oh, jeez. Oh my goodness.
Please do not thaw him out. Please do not thaw Shatner. Please do not thaw Shatner out.
Are you talking about Shatner now or Kirk?
It'll be Shatner now. If we got Shatner now, it'll be Shatner now.
Yeah. If they thaw Shatner out, if they thaw Kirk out, it's going to be Shatner.
That's true.
We know where his body.
Chris Pine. It could be alternate universe Chris Pine. He's come across. He's all fit and young and can beat some people up.
I'm all mixed feelings on Chris Pine.
He's too busy dancing through the Forgotten Realms for that shit. So,
yeah, he was actually really good. Just on a side note, Chris Pine was really, really good in Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves.
Yes. Okay.
I haven't seen it yet, but I will watch it.
Same here.
Another thing about this episode was it's the opposite to last week's episode in that the only nostalgia we really get is the Dominion talk and Tim Russ at the beginning, whereas last week it was every 10 seconds they were shoving something in our face.
Yeah, last week was every episode of an entire season of Lower Decks Easter eggs shoved into one episode.
Oh yeah, it
was fun, mind you.
Easter came early last week in that last episode.
I think I like to think nostalgia should be used sparingly. I enjoyed last week's episode. This week I enjoyed seeing Tim Russ. The Dominion War stuff with Vadic though did you guys understand what she was talking about? Like, I'm trying to work out, was she part of the Great Link, or was she just trapped as a prisoner of war and tortured?
I think she was. I think she was a prisoner of war that was tortured by, and it was.
Yeah.
And they were used by Section 31 to develop some super soldier.
Yeah, and also build the virus. So basically, these were changelings who were being tortured by Section 31 so that they could use them, because that's what Section 31 does. Bad shit to create plot complications later, and see how fast you can make Gene Roddenberry spin in his grave.
I did a video. I did a video on my channel about Section 31, and I think it's the biggest mistake for a series. I think Section 31, every time I hear about what they're doing under the guise of protecting the Federation, I sit there and I go, well, the Federation's not as good as you think if they got the secret agencies going around murdering and torturing people all the time. Like, every time I hear Section 31 comes up, it makes the Federation and, by proxy, the whole Star Trek universe look less good. Like, it doesn't. It's only Picard and Deep Space Nine a little, but it's only Picard that's really sort of gone, this is dark shit.
Yeah. To some degree, Discovery does it as well with the whole Giorgio going to work for Section 31.
And also not knowing how to turn, and also pretty much making everything dark. Because everything has to be dark in space.
Discovery, I think, a sequel to Deep Space Nine, not TNG anyway. When I look at it, I go, this is someone who loved Deep Space Nine who made this. And Brian Fuller was, I think, instrumental in a lot of Deep Space Nine stuff.
I want to add a comment to that. It's somebody who loved Deep Space Nine but hated Star Trek.
I do not hate Discovery. I think the first season was very different. No different than TNG in its first season. I'm sure the old TOS fans are rolling in their grave. But Discovery very much changed its gear and became, funnily enough, Strange New Worlds now, but Discovery became the most hopeful of all the series. Like, in terms of, ignore Strange New Worlds because that's a whole different beast. But if you look at all the series, Discovery went from being dark and dystopian. Picard is weirdly Blade Runner dystopian. But Discovery flipped in season 3, and it was all about building hope and building change. And Picard seems to be about, like, I'm trying to work out what the Federation means in the 25th century at this point, with Section 31 doing some really bad, like, Picard and Crusher are talking about genocide in this episode, and they're gonna do it.
No, that they ultimately said that Beverly said she didn't want to cross the line because she knew there was a line that, it's bad if we cross. But it's not the first time that they've come to that point where they're considering genocide for survival. The I forget the name of the episode, but the one with Hugh.
Oh, Iborg.
When they were considering throwing a programming virus into the Borg collective to try to kill it. Then they sent Hugh back, and they still managed to do some damage.
Yeah. They also, in the episode, though, when after they're talking to Vadic, they pretty much were going to kill Vadic. Like, in cold blood, kill Vadic, which seemed to me to be a little out of character for both of them. I get dramatically, it's very interesting, but I was just like, really? Is this like, it was something I thought stood out in the episode was they admitted that they changed a lot, and how far would they go?
Yeah, I think that was kind of why they were deciding. She has pretty much said she's coming after our son. She's not going to stop. She's a changeling, and they're out of options.
My thing
may not be the right thing to do, but they're looking at, we got to do this shit. It's how at the beginning, it's how the first episode, Beverly's literally shooting a guy, blasting a guy into oblivion on the floor.
I could totally understand her going full on Mama Bear to protect Jack, and even to some degree protecting Picard. But yeah, I mean, it is largely out of character for both of them, especially Picard. I mean, to put it bluntly, in his advanced years, he's become a crotchety old fuck. And it's almost disappointing. It's disappointing because the points that I felt like a lot of people were able to I guess identify with Picard as a character is the fact that he was always the voice of reason. He wasn't as heroic as Kirk, but he was the voice of reason, and he could still put his foot down when he needed to.
As a kid, and I'm talking when I started watching TNG, I was like 5 years old. Picard to me, and it was something. This is gonna sound really bad, and sappy, but because my parents argued a lot. When I saw how Picard handled situations in terms of discussing it and understanding other people and trying to work it out, it was something as a kid I looked up to. So they lost that in the TNG films, to be fair, a little bit. But in terms of this series, with that moment, I was like, I don't think Picard would push that note. I think Picard would always look for a diplomat's way out, if you know what I mean. I don't know. It's a kid thing.
I think to some degree in this episode he was trying with Vadic, but you're right. We both know that they were going down a very dark path. It's like, you know what? Screw it. She is poisoned. I mean, you can never.
They're not going to genocide anybody, but killing somebody who's an active threat and they don't know what else they're going to do. It's a moral choice they're making because they don't see an option because they've been pushed to the limit. They've been getting pushed to the limit from episode 1. Shit's just been going wrong.
Well, I get that for Beverly. I get that she's a mum and mums will do anything for their kids. For Patrick Stewart, like, he's known his son, 3 days? Like, yeah. I don't know how long.
A handful of days, yeah.
And it feels to me, and they still don't know what Jack did or what he is. And it feels to me like Beverly's
still mystery-boxing him.
Yeah. Beverly's known him as her kid for years. So she's grown up with him. Picard hasn't and still should have a level of distrust there and should be more open to maybe trying to work out what that is before he goes on murdering people.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. There is a dichotomy between the two characters. There should be and again, I think Vadic even kind of pegged it when she was talking about basically Beverly was ready to murder fuck her, and Picard comes in being the reasonable and the understanding one, and like, okay, so it's a good cop, bad cop situation, but at the same time, it was like bad cop and not so bad cop,
Yeah. I don't.
Sounds like American Cop.
I got called a curmudgeon. I got called a curmudgeon the other day because of my views on Star Trek Picard.
Really?
I try to be level with when I do my reviews, try to be level with it. And so I'll talk about these things. Like, it's only my opinion. It doesn't matter at all. But in terms of, I don't know, I hit two different things with each episode of Picard. One is, like last episode, I loved the nostalgia. I loved that Voyager moment. This episode didn't have any, I want to say, standout moments other than Tim Russ at the very beginning. There was nothing that sort of grabbed me, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a very good point. The only two real pieces of nostalgia that I recall from this episode, one, obviously, Tuvok, the other being when Vadic basically opens like the tricorder thing on her arm, and you hear the tick-tocking sound of the Star Trek 3 sound of the tricorder.
I thought that was the alien sound. I think it was from Aliens. I think it's the same noise that they use when they have their little scanner in Aliens 2.
Yeah.
Going, there's a xenomorph on board. What's going on?
It's above us.
What?
And so that, and again, I mean, that was the only two pieces. So, as we've kind of we've discussed, this episode was designed to be more of a pairing, because you have kind of Shaw and Seven-ish. You have Jack and Geordi LaForge's non-engineering daughter, and then you have Picard and Beverly, and then you have Geordi and Data, or Data/Lore, and it's all about exploring those emotional connections. Except I think the whole Jack and Sydney thing is kind of just let's have a two people start to have some sort of attraction to each other, because you have to, because if you don't have some form of sexual attraction, then what's all this for, man?
Although, to be fair, when he took over her body, I didn't expect that to be the way he was going to get inside her.
I was wondering when you guys were going to use that.
Well, when we got to the point I could make the joke, I was going to make the joke. You knew that was coming.
Did anyone
Jack
think
wasn't, but oh well.
Though, with Jack and Sydney, maybe this is linked to that connection that Beverly and Picard had on the planet in that episode, where they could read each other's mind. Maybe it's a leftover or something that happened to their brains when that happened. And maybe Jack has that in his brain because both of them were his parents.
Yeah, I'm wondering how he's reading her mind. That was kind of cool. And then takes her over and fights the big bad, and it's awesome. But yeah, So yeah, I think this one was let's ramp this. I think the purpose of this episode was explore those relationships and keep ramping up the tensions. Like, how the hell are they going to get out of this one? I mean, this was out of the frying pan and into the fire. Also, yeah, Vadek's got control of the ship, and I got to see the Ready Room exclusive clip from next week. It only appears to be getting worse as she takes over the ship.
3 episodes to go. I don't know how. It's going to be big 3.
Yeah, I mean, is the last episode going to be like a double or something, or an extra long one, so they can wrap everything up? Because if they leave any trailing bits, it's going to be like.
They're not going to do the Stranger Things. Let's double the size of the episode. Shit, are they?
They could do the Mandalorian and have a 30-minute episode.
Yeah.
I like that episode. That was great. Also, it's like, oh, it's over already? How long? Oh, shit.
Yeah, what the hell? Guys, stop screwing with me. Like, just pick pick a format and run with it, okay? Like it's 43 minutes.
That night was like 60 minutes. I was like, Mandalorian was 30, Star Trek 60. How does that work?
Yeah,
which is the biggest franchise?
Like, come on, can we shave off a little bit of one and add it to the other? Come on, I want to see some more Grogu. So,
yeah, let's get him on the Titan. That'll be fun.
Well, R2-D2's already been in 2 Star Trek films, so I'm sure he could pop up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Oh dear. I think wasn't he like a leftover thing from ILM when they were doing the CG work for I want to say the 2009 Star Trek?
Well, yeah, he was in the debris field somewhere.
Yeah. I think he was in Beyond as well, and the Millennium Falcon was in First Contact in the background of the Wolf 359 scene.
Of course it was.
So,
why not?
Because, I mean,
they're the same universe.
Like, seriously, man, they made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs. I mean, they got to be at Wolf 359. Or the or the was it the battle with the Borg before they went back in time.
Yeah.
I think with this week's episode, I actually really enjoyed some of the characters, particularly Vadek's actress, and I've forgotten her name.
Amanda Plummer.
I think she, hands down, she was the standout this episode.
Oh yeah, she delivered everything, and you could feel she was righteous in what she's doing. At least that's how she believes. She is righteous in her quest to wipe out the Solids, who, of course, tortured her and had no problem doing it, and were trying to genocide our people, and literally they didn't give the cure. They more or less had to get the cure. They had to essentially steal the cure. Although I did confirm it was Bashir that actually stole the cure, gave it to Odo, and then Odo was the one who took it to the Link because they managed to trade peace for, hey, we can cure you now.
Yep, like you guys fuck off that way. Here, you can have your special happy juice.
Yeah, they've obviously contacted the Great Link. So why isn't Odo trying to stop any of this happening, other than the fact that the actor's dead?
That's probably why.
That or the Link didn't know about that, or this is the splinter group that's not part of the Link anymore, and that's why the Great Link doesn't know.
She said she'd been recruiting, though, I think, in this episode, because there was only like 7 vials. So yeah. I was a little bit like she must have gone back to the Great Link and recruited people. I suppose genocide would make you a bit crazy.
Yeah. And I'm pretty certain there was a good number in the Link that would be willing to leave and take the crusade on. And then the rest of the Link said, okay, we're going to stay here, and we're going to stay in wherever we've moved the Link to stay the hell away from the Federation, because those are crazy bastards.
They are crazy bastards.
More and more.
Speaking of crazy bastards, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode here. So, Trav, why don't you go ahead and tell our lovely viewers and listeners how they can find you online?
Well, you can go to @TrekTrav on YouTube. You can go to TrekTrav Official on TikTok, Trek.Trav on Instagram. Twitter, I think I'm TrekTrav on there as well. And that's all I have for the moment.
Perfect. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of Treknicity. Thank you for joining on this spoiled review of Star Trek Picard. Be sure to check us out on all of our wonderful socials listed down below. You can also visit us on our YouTube channel at redshirtgeeks.tv, where you can look back at the last 9 years of content. I can't believe I'm saying it. 9 years of content.
9 years.
It's amazing. I've done 1 year and I'm tired.
I'm Lars.
And I'm Patrick. And Shaw still lives!
Oh, that's right.
Yay!
Yes. I almost forgot about it. Oh, my goodness. Holy cow.
Yeah. So let's go.
And remember to go boldly and to rock out with your Spock out. We'll see you next time.